Okay. We'll just give everyone a chance here to log in and welcome everyone. I think we'll just give everyone a few minutes just to pile on. And we're really happy to be here today. It's going to be a great hour of expert advice. And I invite everyone to use the chat feature, which is on the right-hand side of the screen. If you want to post your questions, that would be great if you take a moment to do that. And as we move along through the content, please feel free to post a question. The lovely Carrie McIver from Landscape Ontario is here with us, and she's going to make sure that she marks any questions that you post for us so that it catches our attention. And so we'll get started. And I just wanted to welcome everyone. My name is Jacki Hart from Muskoka, Ontario, and I have a little business coaching company called Consulting by Hart. And we've got some fabulous, wonderful speakers here. Welcome to part 2 of this Nursery and Landscape Association Executives of North America webinar. We did one at the beginning of April, and my, how things have changed. So thanks, Phil Harwood, for the idea to revisit this again a few weeks later. So thanks for joining in today. It's my hope that we're all going to leave this webinar with some nuggets of advice, with inspiration and hope, and with the determination to keep leading our teams through rapid change in a way that we're all proud of. It's become really clear over the last few weeks that the impact of COVID-19 on businesses varies greatly from region to region, from state to state, and from province to province, and even from sector to sector within the industry. We know that things can change quickly, from compliance measures that are legislated to keep your teams and your clients and your community safe, to the economic stability and willingness of our clients to invest in our products and services going forward. Some are booming. Some of the landscape businesses are booming and can't keep up right now, and others are shuttered and completely shut down in their region. Many are halfway in between, with rapidly changing guidelines and conditions that are emerging every week. Opportunities, though, are popping up in places where we least expect it, which is a great thing. What I know for sure is that this is a time for all of you to think about equipping yourselves with 2 important things: knowledge and will. When you focus your energy to rally and deploy the will of your team with the most up-to-date and relevant knowledge and training, then you will be the leader that your company needs at this time, and you'll look back at your choices and your actions with pride. Hindsight is going to be 2020 for all of us, and we'll emerge from this COVID-19 era being better equipped to handle the next crisis that comes along to our businesses. So in the meantime, let's hear advice from this top team of North American business coaches and experts. Today we have Jim Palouche, we have Mark Bradley, we have Phil Harwood, and Jeffrey Scott. And we've got the lovely Carrie McIver from Landscape Ontario as our wing girl here today. She's riding shotgun. So first off, I'd like to introduce Phil Harwood. And Phil is we've got a lot in common, Phil. You and I have never met face to face, but we're both 35-year green industry veterans, and we're both Landscape Ontario preferred consultants. But Phil also is a NALP Trailblazer, which is a great program. He's a 2-time winner of the SEMA Snow Industry Commitment Award, and he's the owner of ProMotion Consulting, GrowTheBench.com, and Snow Fighters Institute. Phil's comments today, I'm guessing, are going to be focused on leadership and culture. So Phil,
yes,
let's learn from your wonderful wisdom.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacki. Well, I was waiting to hear the word crisis in your intro, and I did. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And this is a crisis, more so for some than others, of course, depending where you are. But certainly a global pandemic is a crisis. Normally, when we think of a crisis, we think of that as a bad thing, right? Has a negative connotation. But there are some positive aspects of a crisis, and I actually want to talk about a couple of them. There are 2 that specifically that come to mind. And sometimes leaders and leadership teams will manufacture a crisis because of these 2 things. And the first one I want to talk about is that a crisis brings clarity. And what I mean by that is it really exposes things that don't get exposed when there's not a crisis, right? So specifically, most importantly, it exposes people. It exposes who we are. It shows our character, how we respond to the crisis. It shows our beliefs and our values in a way that would never be seen in normal circumstances. And I think we can really see this if we look at some of the kind of the heroes of this crisis, right? Which are probably the first thing we think of are the healthcare workers, right? The people that, hug the, aging people in nursing homes, the doctors that are, even though they're, PPE from head to toe, they're still exposed, and they're there every day, and they're working 24-hour shifts to care for people who have a illness that doesn't have a cure. And it's just fascinating to think about how someone would be that committed to what they're doing. And it's just a good example of the exposure of their character. Or think about, 9/11 and firefighters rushing into buildings that are on fire, and thousands of other people are streaming out of the building and they're running in, right? I mean, what possesses someone to do that? And I think the correlation there is that just in our businesses, we can also see that people are exposed, and sometimes really great, cool ways, and sometimes ways where it makes us really think, wow, maybe this person isn't really a good part of our team or shouldn't be part of our team. Maybe they're a better fit for someone else, right? It exposes us and it exposes our people. So that's really the first thing, that a crisis brings clarity. It exposes things that normally wouldn't be exposed. Secondly, a crisis brings opportunity for change. And that's really why manufacturing a crisis can be kind of a strategic planning gimmick, if you will, right? Create a crisis where it didn't belong, because within that crisis, we can implement and accelerate change that normally we wouldn't maybe be able to get away with. So the first change is our people, right? I mean, if we've identified people that are not a good cultural fit for us, this is a good time to move those people out of our leadership roles or even out of our companies. And I've seen this with my clients. I've seen them making some pretty serious changes with personnel at high levels because people aren't stepping up, and they're realizing, wow, these people, I thought they were really committed, but they're really not. They're committed to themselves, or they're committed to something else, but they're really not committed to the mission of the organization and what we're trying to do here. So changing people this is not a bad time to do that. And then just to implement innovation. I mean, there's so much innovation that springs forth during a time of crisis, right? And that's why sometimes it's kind of manufactured, but right now we don't have to manufacture crisis. We have it in front of our face. If you think about just the global supply chain, there's going to be some serious changes in manufacturing. I think moving back from China. I think of all the standards that are going to be put in place in our food supply chain and with our restaurants, with food preparation and handling and deliveries. And I think about, well, how does some of that change? What does that look like with our companies and our industry? It's more things about flexible work arrangements that are happening all over the place right now. I think some people's productivity is skyrocketed because they have flexibility to work in a way that better fits their needs. And there's more of a focus on results than attendance or putting in the hours, And let's be honest, we work crazy hours in this industry. So more quality of life is really a good thing. So if some of that can remain in place and really be something that comes out of this, that's a good thing. I also see a pretty serious change in terms of financial awareness. So much more focused on financial management, planning, the understanding of cash in a way that I've never seen before. So very significant change happening there. And then just the use of technology. Right before we started the webinar, we were just bantering amongst ourselves. And Jacki was talking about some of her experiences with technology with the Landscape Ontario peer-to-peer network and other areas. I've seen that with my clients as well. Just the use of technology is just accelerated greatly, and that's a good thing. And there's probably all kinds of other innovations that are happening as well. So just the opportunity for change. The other side of a crisis is it's really a leadership challenge. And I knew that from day one. This was going to be a huge test of leadership and really to take care of our people. And I've seen some incredible examples of clients of mine, the things that they've done to take care of their people. And I just want to real briefly talk about 4 basic needs of employees. And this is true for across all industries. This is from extensive Gallup research. And the 4 are simply hope, hope of what? Hope of a better future. The geeky business world term for that is vision, right? Talk about the future. Talk about where we're going. Talk about the roadmap. Talk about what it looks like and how you fit in. That's hope. The minute people don't have hope, it's game's over, right? Hope is essential. It's a prerequisite for anything. Number 2 is trust. Our people want to see that our actions match our words, that they can really, really trust us. And during a crisis, this really becomes exposed. Third basic need is compassion. Our people want to be heard. They want to really know that we understand them, that we're listening, we're understanding their thoughts and their feelings. And then the fourth kind of basic need is stability. People need stability, even when there's change, and there's a lot of change happening right now, and a lot of this is good change, but wherever we can find stability, people want some sense of consistency within all the change. So those are the 4 things. I think it's really important to focus on basics and not a bunch of kind of flashy, shiny stuff. You've heard that phrase before. Go back to the basics. When things are crazy and there's challenges, those are the 4 basic needs that your employees have, and that you have as well. So I think those are good things to think about. How am I doing on time, Jackie?
You're good. Actually,
Okay.
I've been listening.
You.
No, you've been great. This is great. I just, while I've been listening to you, I've been thinking, you mentioned replacing people who aren't a good fit. What advice do you give for companies trying to hire and onboard people in this environment?
My main thought is just to do it. Don't stop recruiting. And there's a lot of people looking for work right now, believe it or not. People are looking for better opportunities. In some situations, it's because their companies haven't taken care of them, or they've seen leadership that they really don't trust any longer because of the crisis, because they've been managed improperly, or because they don't see the hope for the future where they're at. And they're looking to make a change. They've seen something they don't like, and they're open to something else. So I would just say, pedal to the metal, keep going. It is what it is, right? If you have to do a Zoom interview for the first couple interviews before you meet face to face and you're 6 feet apart, and it is what it is, right? So my advice is don't stop recruiting, especially if you know you have a need.
Absolutely. That's awesome advice. I'd just like to invite for a moment, Jim or Mark or Jeffrey, do any of you have a question you wanted to ask Phil about his comments on what the crisis exposes and the opportunities that it brings and the calls for leadership? Jeffrey, go ahead. Oh, you're muted. Jeffrey, you're on mute. Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Phil, great comments. Always be recruiting. I love that. I was speaking with an owner last night, and she found that their existing client employees are happy to come back to work, but they're fearful of bringing on a new employee that they don't know. And so I guess my question to you would be, is what advice would you have for, how an owner should handle that, where they're trying to handle on the, just tamping down or dealing with the fears in their employee base and bringing new people into that culture?
Yeah, I think my thought is with that, certainly I think there's a burden on employers to really understand what all the requirements are for that situation. If you're following everything you can follow in those steps regarding taking temperatures and protocols for quarantining and, just evidence of illness, right? All those things play into it. And all those things are very specifically outlined, right? So those requirements exist. So I would get my hands on those. I'd be very proactive about communicating what those are, and I'd be very strict about adhering to them. And you know what? I think that would, if this person is complying with and fits into all those, if all the boxes are checked on the checklist, right? We're letting them come back to work. And I think then you're on solid ground. So.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, Phil. I just noticed a couple of comments about someone being frozen, their screen frozen. There is a red button to reconnect at the top of your screen in the center. If your screen does freeze, Carrie's put a Post-it at the top in yellow to suggest that. But if you hadn't noticed that, just click the red reconnect button and you should be fine. So now I'd like to call on Jim. And Jim is president of JP Horizons, and he's here to talk about accomplishing more by doing nothing. And when Jim and I spoke yesterday, he pointed out that we may never have this opportunity again to gather in everything we've read in the best business self-help books, things that we've heard at insightful seminars and classes, the things that we've observed in visiting other people's businesses, or even observed and felt just walking through our own business and company, to put all of this together and lead our companies and associations and families forward even greater in the future. The next step in accomplishing all of this, though, according to Jim, is to do nothing. So, Jim, we're all ears.
You know, there's a magic, and thank you, Jacki and Phil. One of the questions I would have asked is, what else did the rest of us talk about after Phil finished? Because it was so right on, and Landscape Ontario and the Nursery and Landscape Association executives, thank you for caring enough about everybody, and it's a privilege to be here. So there's a strategy in choosing a talk or a title for a talk, and the idea of accomplishing more by doing nothing. That just leaves wide open for me to just maybe explore some things to get you to think about, because maybe this is really an exciting time. And everything we've been doing, whether it's 35 years or 3.5 years of being in this landscape profession, we're going to have to pull on it and use it and think about how we apply it in order to really take advantage of the opportunities and everything that's out there in front of us. And so what if we miss that opportunity? What if we miss that opportunity and jump right back into business and trying to do it as usual? We may really one day reflect that I should have back there when that happened. There was just such an opportunity. So I don't want to downplay any bit of the seriousness and the sense of urgency and the critical time that we're in for businesses and families and communities. And but yet it could be a time that all of us as leaders need to just stop for a moment. And man, I don't know if it's good to ask this, but how many of us maybe have already heard enough? And that's why I'm even hesitant in trying to add much more to anything here. But now how do we take that information and starting to move forward with it? And one of the things I just want to give you a thought on is, as a leader, how do I just stop and think in this time? We hear so much and our mind gets going about how we're going to do this and what we need to do here and the next regulation. And we're just sitting on the edge of our seat wondering what is going to be the next obstacle thrown in front of us. But how do we take time to think? And I'm just thinking just before we got on here of 20 years ago, I was working with a manufacturing company. It was the 70-year-old father passing it on to the 40-some-year-old son, and that transition was happening. And that father was wise enough to say to his son something along the lines of Joe, here's what I want to make sure. You never feel bad about going into your office, closing the door, putting your feet up on the desk, and just thinking, because running a business or a crew or a community, we all need time to think. And I just wonder if we're finding the time to think. We're homeschooling our kids, or we're childcare, or we're trying to think which mask looks best with which suit, or whatever it is. You know, all these tough decisions. And if we don't take time to think and start to focus inward, and a lot has been said. Scott Wentworth is such a tremendous individual, and his role in Come Alive Outside and Landscape Ontario support of it. But maybe it is time to go take a walk and get lost in the woods, or maybe it's, I'm going to tell you, here's something, here's an idea, write this down, it's a good one. If you haven't listened to Robert Frost reciting the Birches, reciting his poem, The Birches, it's probably great for all of us as as landscape professionals to listen to, and it will cause you to stop and think. So I'll just challenge you to do that, is take time to think. Get rid of the cobwebs that could be smacking us in the face or going around in our brains. And the other thing is, when we have taken the time to think, and I love what Phil was saying about this, is then let's help our team, especially now, our leadership team. Let's help them stop for a moment and consider what might be going through their minds. What do I need to do? And there's an old saying that your crew is a direct reflection of you. So if we see them running around wondering when they come back, what am I doing, and who, it might be good to look in the mirror. But I'm going to challenge you to take time and in Zoom meetings. We have been doing so many Zoom meetings, as I know everybody else has that's on here, with leadership teams. Not because I can get on and say anything that's earth-shattering, but I can sure ask great questions. And I'll just challenge all of you with that. If you're thinking about how do I get my team to think, my leadership team to think, you've got 4 or 5 great people on here that it would probably be fun to contact them and say, would you spend an hour with us on a Zoom meeting? I'd love to. Email Linda at JP Horizons and let us see if we can help your leadership meetings. But setting expectations by asking questions. Where do you think we should go? What do we do? What do you see your first steps? And as we really start to gear back up here, and then thinking about our team as a whole, those individuals that are going to be coming back. And I'll just say this, and it was already touched on, Phil mentioned it, is there is no reason to go into the rest of 2020 with underperformers. And I know that sounds cruel, but give them the opportunity to go succeed someplace else. If we're going to capture the opportunities that are going to be out there, and we're going to be geared up, ready to really tackle that work in maybe a shorter time frame, there's no need for underperformers. And so be looking at our team and helping those that maybe need to move on with dignity, and help those that we can step up to step up. So making sure that your team is there. And same with customers. It may be time to give thought to, how do we allow some of our customers to choose someone else, only because it's really important to know that we may not be able to get to all of them. Lots of people talk about we've got full schedules, but let's let them go in a nice way, in a good way, that they talk about us as being the greatest landscape company ever, and we never did any work for them. Wouldn't that be a fun thing to be able to do? And then the other 2 thoughts, just to end up, is this idea of we don't have to be. We've got a choice in all of this. We don't have to choose the role of being a victim of this happened to me, this regulation, this is going on, this company's working, they shouldn't be, and I didn't, and yet their way. We don't have don't let that choice enter in. We don't have to be a victim. We have the choice on that. And if we can start choosing to inspire, if we can think about, how do I find the words? How do I find the right quotes? How do I find the right ideas? How can I talk to my team in such a way that they have confidence, that there's a sense of boldness as we're going forward, that I can give the best Vince Lombardi halftime speech, even if I don't like Vince Lombardi, to just be able to give something that we can get excited about. And maybe this last thought, just to wrap it up, is, and I don't even remember where I heard it, but it's really pretty straightforward, is winners win and losers lose. Winners win and losers lose. So as we go forward here, we've got to make that choice. Am I going to win? And if I'm going to win, that means I need to be doing this. It means I need to have that plan, that focused, inspiring, moving forward, positive expectations. Or if I'm choosing to lose or to be that victim, that's a pretty easy place to get to. And in doing that, you've missed opportunities. You've maybe let your team down to a certain extent with that. And so it's a great time it's a great time for all of us going forward. It's going to be exciting over the next several weeks and into the next month and a half or so, because there's going to be things we learn about ourselves that build the confidence and the character to go forward. And let us know how we can help. Stay involved with your associations and your peer groups and everything that you're doing, because that's a great support. But also slow down for a minute and start to think going forward. Jacki, thank you so much.
Jim, that's fabulous. I think it's so necessary, and thank you for giving everyone here the permission to slow down.
Yeah.
Really. We don't get, as entrepreneurs and type A personalities, we don't know how to do that very well, right? None of us. And I think it's a skill that takes a lot of practice. And it's not something that most business owners give themselves the permission to do, because doing nothing feels awkward and uncomfortable. But in actual fact, I remember someone giving me the same advice early on in my landscape company, like, take a day off. And I was like, no, if I take a day off, everything's going to explode. And I'm like, no, just take a day off, and you would be amazed at what clarity that will bring if you just take your foot off the gas. So I'm so grateful for you to give everyone here the permission right now in particular to take some time and I love that analogy, put your feet up on your desk. And just, is there any kind of steps that you would suggest people take to prepare to do nothing?
There is, and it is that walk in the woods. It is that simple things. It is finding what you're liking to do. So get into that mindset. So much about being in the moment and those thoughts that we hear. And if we would stop and think of how many times in a sporting event, or that before a basketball game or hockey game, and they go into the locker room, and there's the star with the headphones on, with his eyes closed or her eyes closed, and they're just watching and they're listening to the music, or that skier up at the top of the ski jump, that is picturing it, envisioning it. It's okay to close our eyes and start to think about, where do I want to take this thing? And in doing that, Mike Rory is a great friend, great individual in the landscape profession, and many of you may know him. He said something one time that was just awesome, and it just has always stuck with me. I am in no way confused. I am in no way confused. So if we're gonna take our first steps, let's not be confused.
Right.
Let's know where we're headed and feel confident and go forward boldly in that.
Awesome.
Question.
Awesome. Mark or Phil or Jeffrey, did you have any comment or question? Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, Jim. So I'm curious, I know for me, sitting in the office, trying to close my eyes, impossible. I need to get out of my office. When you need to do some deep thinking, where do you go? What do you do?
We've moved to Western Massachusetts. We've got the greatest of woods and rocks and streams, and I've got the greatest boxer pup and 2-year-old, and that walk in the woods can solve anything. So connecting back with nature is powerful. Connecting back with a good book can be powerful, and or a poem or a drawing. I love to paint and the things that go with that. So finding that place that we can escape to, really probably like what we really enjoy and need to escape to anyway, is a good thing. But get outside and breathe.
Come alive outside.
Come alive outside.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Any other comments from Jeffrey or Mark? Nope. Okay. I'm going to move on. So Jeffrey, we know Jeffrey's had a little bit of trouble with his video here today. He's still here. He can hear us, I'm sure. And I don't know if you're muted, Jeffrey, but you're up next. So, oh, you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay. So Jeffrey, let's hear what you've got to share with us for today.
Thank you so much, Jacki. Thanks, Jim and Phil. Great thoughts. Really, I took some notes here as well while you were talking. I want to speak first about an updated or a more nuanced economic prediction, right? Last time we were online, I gave my thoughts, and now I have a more nuanced message for everybody. I said before, we're going to have a V economy or a V recovery. And as I look out in the economy, parts of the US, parts of Canada, they're not even experiencing the recession. It's not even there. And other parts are just shut down completely still, like San Francisco. So it's a real patchwork, but there isn't necessarily a recession to recover from in parts of it. And so that made me realize that this recovery will also be a patchwork. Some will be right there, already recovered. Other parts of our economy, yes, they will go down, and yes, they may take a U shape in recovering. And so that's really an opportunity for you. If you think about recovery, it takes some monetary help, interest rates, some fiscal help, taxes, but it takes confidence over everything. And that's in your control. Statistically, 48% of the economy is employed small businesses. That's my company and that's your company. And so really, you can power your way. If you're in a dip, you can power your way through this economic crisis by your own confidence and just how you move forward starting today. This disruption, I've been telling people, it really shows who your true salespeople are and who they aren't. You can look at your sales team, and if you're in a part of the country that's under disruption, your true salespeople are still selling. They're still out talking. They're moving. They're getting the phone to ring, and your not so good salespeople are faltering. So it's an interesting litmus test that we're going through here. And so I want to talk about some of you out there that might be faltering. Some of you, many of you are doing great, excellent. But this message is for some of you that are lacking that sales culture. I call it the sales gene. Does your company have that DNA, that sales and marketing gene? And so here's 5 questions to ask yourself. This should help everybody. Number 1, is there somebody that wakes up every morning and goes to bed every night thinking about sales? Now, in a small company, sure, it's the owner, but if you have any ambition, let's not include the owner in that. So is there somebody else in your company that wakes up in the morning and bing, they're thinking about sales? That is critical for a company to have a sales culture. Number 2, are your salespeople that you do have on staff, are they driven by commission? If you have people on salary only, sometimes it works, but that's really the exception. I would not plan on it as a plan. And so it tells me if you have a sales culture, if you have some system of commissions, incentives set up in your company. Number 3, are you active online and offline with your marketing? Both. Companies with a strong sales culture don't rely on just one or just the other, but they really have both, and they measure the results of both, and they're always tweaking both. Number 4, do you have a marketing plan to your existing clients? Not just sending out the agreements or sending out just a couple newsletters, but a real integrated, comprehensive plan on how you stay in touch with them and remind them that you're here and what you sell, where you could do cross-selling and upselling. That's the sign of a strong sales culture. Lastly, do you have stretch sales goals? Real stretch sales goals, and not just for your person that's going out to sell new clients, but also selling enhancements to existing clients. I was speaking with Frank Mariani last week. I interviewed him on my podcast, and we both agreed that a good stretch goal is 150% of the maintenance contract. Now, to do that, you've got to include internal referrals to other divisions, internal referrals to your design build division or your install. But that kind of stretch goal, which makes the whole company work really well together, that's a sales culture. And so if you find yourself worried at all about sales, use this checklist and think about even if you're not strong as an owner, that you're asking for, inspiring, and creating that sales culture in your company. One last thought here, Jacki. We are talking about the new normal, right? Phil spoke about it, and I think some others will speak about it. And it's interesting. I mean, we're reacting now, and we're doing things that are different for now, but will we stick with it 2, 3, 4 years down the road? Because that's a normal, right? That'll be the new normal. So, for example, I was talking with Frank Mariani, and he was saying, well, we're getting back to the customer. We're getting really close to the customer, and we're really amping that up. And I think that's cyclical, right? You come out of a recession, you get really close with the clients. 5 or 6, 7, 8 years after, you might not. And so I think that's critical. I think that should be everybody's new normal. The ability to work from home is definitely a new normal. I had debates with clients 5 months ago. Should they, shouldn't they? Well, now everybody should. And so what it tells you is you could expand without buying a new building, without increasing rent overhead, because people can work from anywhere. And I think that will stick. I have clients using freelancers. They're going on Upwork and hiring freelancers to take aspects of normally overhead positions they need filled, but includes estimating takeoffs, financials, controlling. And so I would challenge everybody here to go to Upwork.com, figure out how to use it, because it's part of the new normal, because it's no different than having an employee working from home. One last thought, Jacki. It might be easier to hire now and what's going on, but I don't think that will be the new normal. I think once we get back, it's going to remain difficult to attract great talent. I'm inspired by Jim with the giveaway he did there. And so I've got my book here. And so I want to give everybody a copy of this. If you want one, you can actually download a free copy. I've set this up at jeffreyscott.biz/free book. And so if you go to that link, you can download a free copy. This has become a destination company, which will remain critical, building your company from the inside out, that attracts, retains, and develops great employees. I want to wish you luck this year, and hopefully you can kill it like many people are.
That's awesome, Jeffrey. Thank you. And you make such a great point with your five points of selling. Are you getting an echo?
I can turn down my volume.
All right. Are you still getting an echo? Okay. No. Good. Okay. So I think with those are great points, those 5 pieces of advice, because I think with the economy that we've had in the last 4, 5, 10 years, it's been so strong that some of us maybe got a little lazy in the sales department. Some of us maybe got a little spoiled in the sales department, that, the phone was ringing off the hook all on its own. And many people couldn't keep up with the work that was coming at them. So marketing maybe fell behind a little bit. I know some haven't spent as much in their online presence and managing it and keeping it up to date on a weekly, if not daily basis. So wonderful, fabulous advice. I just want to open the mic up to Phil, Jim, and Mark, if you've got any question or want to comment on Jeffrey's advice there before we move on. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, the comment about introducing commissions to really drive a valid sort of sales department. Lots of companies have multiple people selling, and they might not always be dedicated salespeople. I just wondered if you had some ideas for adding a commission piece to existing companies who may not be there right now. So sort of a transition strategy to add that, because I do think, to your point, it's a great way to drive sales and sort of create that culture. It's just not always easy to implement. So I think tips too would be helpful.
What I found is that strong salespeople like a commission. They enjoy that commission, that challenge. And so my comment really comes from that heart of making sure you have a really strong salesperson goes hand in hand with having that commission. And so if you can start commissions, I mean, it could be paying people to find leads. It could be incentivizing upsells or, a percentage on enhancement sales. So commissions don't create great salespeople, right? They go hand in hand. And so my advice is try things out. It may or may not work, but ultimately let's bring in a dedicated salesperson that wakes up in the morning thinking about it, and they just love sales and commissions and everything that goes with it.
And then another question that I get a lot is what is a fair commission on whether it be design, build, or maintenance contracts? What is a fair commission, and how do you arrive at that type of a structure?
So I'll take a straightforward example. Looks like I lost my video, but you can still hear me. So a cost of a salesperson is going to be between, and let's think design build, right, or install. Let's think design build. That's the easiest one for the example here. It'll be between 7 and 12%, let's say, maybe 5% if it's a heavy bidding and less design work. The issue that I see, Mark, is risk and reward. If a salesperson comes to you and they want to earn 10%, but they want it all in salary, then they want all the reward and none of the risk. And so in that case, if they want all salary, they're going to make on the lower end of the percentage of cost of sales, 7%, or even lower, down to 6 or 5. If they want to earn 10% or more, then they've got to be willing to take some of the risk, which means lower base or even zero base. And in that case, you can pay them highly and they can become the highest paid employee in the company. The aspect to think about is it just them going to do all the design and all the estimate, or are you giving them support? Because now you have to bake that into your mathematical calculation to make sure it makes sense. It has to be win-win, right? Salesperson has to win, the company has to win, and too often I see companies actually letting the salesperson win almost at the cost of the company winning. Yeah. Ironically, I see that often.
Yeah, great question. Thanks, Mark. Was there anything else you wanted to ask or chat with Jeffrey about?
No, that was great. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Okay, good. Phil, you're good? Okay. All right, Jeffrey, thank you so much. And thank you for offering your book to everyone here. I read it. It's a great book. And full of great advice. And so Carrie is going to include the link to that book for everyone here on the webinar. You'll get a recorded copy of the webinar afterwards in a follow-up email, and any of the resources that any of us provide to you, any of the links to any of the websites will be in that follow-up email. So not to worry. So last but not least, Mark Bradley. Mark, CEO of LMN, and I think Mark today wants to discuss, you said you're going to discuss customer experience, and you're going to address how we can adapt to the new normal and cater to what our customers need, and provide better service to build loyalty, increase sales, and improve our efficiency in the future. So Mark, thanks for being here. We'd love to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, I think we keep hearing about the new normal, but what is that? I'm not too sure. I don't think I would claim to know entirely, but the obvious ones I think that we can all agree on. People are going to spend more time at home, a lot more time than they have in the past. I think there's a great new emergence of more family time. What better way to force people to spend more time together? And I think overall people are enjoying that aspect of this outbreak. I think we've learned to enjoy our time at home and our time with our families. And I think what we're seeing is a huge increase in interest around do-it-yourselfer projects. I mean, you can't find flour online because everybody's baking. Things that people just haven't done in the past have really become the new normal, and in a relatively short period of time. So I think people are going to spend a lot more time outdoors, and they are spending a lot more time outdoors. People are taking more pride in their homes, and I think looking for more ways to enhance the experience of spending time in their own space. And I think this on the heels of, a movement, that had been transpiring over a period of time with the staycation, less travel and whatnot was sort of a thing before this even started. I think it gives landscapers an opportunity to adapt and build business in maybe a little bit different way than in the past. But I think we have to identify the consumer mindset and the corporate mindset all at once. The corporate mindset right now is very clear: cut costs. And many landscapers service businesses in a sort of business to business format, whether it be corporations and institutions that they service for landscape maintenance and construction. In that world, it's going to be all about cost cutting. And I think we as contractors or as an industry need to adapt and create systems and processes within our business to service customers in this sort of new normal. So how should we adapt, I think, is the question. Obviously, we've talked a lot so far on this webinar about being open to change. And I think in the past few weeks, a lot of webinars and information, emails and whatnot have come out about changing our operations, how to continue to do the work, whether it be, adjusting our crew sizes and our fleets and, PPE, all kinds of great insights have come our way. But I think what we need to do next is think about how we're going to service our customers and create a customer experience that is going to build loyalty. We are going to want to keep our customers more than ever. As Jeffrey just mentioned from his recent podcast interview, getting closer with your customers is important right now. And how we do that, I think, needs to kind of tie into this new normal. So in the residential market, I think we're going to see a big demand on play spaces and backyard swimming pools and places for family gardening. I think outdoor kitchens and vegetable gardens are going to be rampant this year. We're already hearing lots of stories of potting soil being sold out and seeds and vegetable plants, and things are just kind of getting started. So I think, homeowners are going to want more deliver to the door type service. They're going to want more packages. They're going to want more opportunity to dig in and get their hands dirty themselves. And I think as contractors, we have to adapt to that way of thinking. And, in all likelihood, most homeowners are not going to build a really sophisticated backyard play space or vegetable garden on their own because they don't know how to. But I think if through our marketing to our existing customers, if we work on showing them examples, products, pricing, packages, and then giving them educational tools to understand how to do it themselves, I think, or at least maintain it themselves, I think we could drive some business that way. Many customers homeowners are interested in vegetable gardening right now. Great opportunity for us to get a project, get our foot in the door for a bigger project, and maybe do that by adding blog articles, social media posts, monthly newsletters, to teach them how easy it is to do vegetable gardening and that you're there to help get them pointed in the right direction. So I think there's things like that we can do to just sort of build loyalty and really create lasting relationships with our customers right now based on the way they're thinking. And then I think to really bring our customers closer in the industry, I think landscapers need to get really good at using some technology and some just old-fashioned, person-to-person interaction to do that well. And what I mean by that is not going over and sitting at their kitchen table, because let's face it, that's not going to be something we can do. But Zoom or GoToMeeting, these are very easy products to use. Most of our customers, most people who can afford to spend money on landscaping have used those types of technologies or are using them every day right now. So as contractors, offer that service. Book meetings with every existing customer you have to do a spring consultation and talk about what their needs are, and do it face to face, and then go out and visit the property on your own and take some photos so that maybe you can reference them in the future during online meetings. I think, using design software that has photo imaging capability is more important now than ever, to just take pictures of the property and make suggestions using that type of software that you can share in a more interactive way on a meeting. Definitely, building a more transparent relationship. At LMN, we even expedited our customer portal launch. It was due to come out in a few months, but we actually pushed that forward because we had so many of our customers asking us to give them a way of doing business virtually. So whether it's recording the work, letting the customers see the work, check the schedule, request work, make payments, approve estimates, all virtually. We put that product out so that our contractors can attach it to their websites and really create a virtual experience for their own customers. But I think what we're going to have to do in general is really think differently about how we approach our customers, and really be a little bit more flexible in what we do, and maybe change our approach a little bit in how we handle some customers. Like in the case of a commercial contract, I think it's going to be quite important that when they pick up the phone and ask for us to revisit the budget, that we do it quick. If you don't adapt and change your pricing contract when you're asked to, somebody else is going to do it very quickly, and you're going to lose the work. So I think being transparent and being fair with the customers and being flexible is going to be key if you want to maintain those contracts. The other thing is, I think this is a fantastic time to sell. And as Jeffrey said, having that sales culture really has more importance now than ever. I think customers are going to be shopping, and they're going to be looking for people who are out in the market and are active in doing business. And I think creating the opportunities for customers to do business with us as new contractors is going to rely on sort of changing the way we approach them. And yes, virtual meetings for the first meeting are going to be a thing of part of our daily business, which I think is a great opportunity in the future. It would sure save a lot of driving around and a lot of inefficiency. And I think getting used to meeting with customers and doing their initial consultations online is going to be a pretty important component of our businesses. But yeah, that was all for today. I mean, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and ask away.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Yes, Phil.
Well, as the only CEO of a major company on this call here, I'm curious, what are you most proud of when it comes to your team at LMN? Like, what really stands out to you, the way your team has addressed the crisis and, had to realign work and work from home and all that stuff? Is there anything that really stands out to you?
I think it was early March I first sort of realized how bad this crisis was going to become. I was working down in California, and things had started to get worse in California a little bit earlier, particularly in the Bay Area. And when I sort of heard the numbers had started to creep up in Ontario, I was pretty quick in early March to close the office. We're probably one of the first few offices to close. And what was most amazing was, I made the decision on a Sunday, and by Monday at 4:00, everything had been set up to work remote. And nothing changed. Customer satisfaction maintained. All of our courses switched over very quickly to become online. We've been blown away at the demand for software, so we're still selling, which is great. People have had the time. We've found that people are a lot more engaged in the implementation process, and we've spent a lot more time with our existing customers, opening up new features and whatnot that they may not have been taking advantage of. But I think what I think was most impressive to me was just how engaged the team was working remotely, because I've always been, of the mind that you have to be in the office. I've not been a big fan of remote work. Maybe it's just the construction background in me, but if you're not there, you can't be 100%. Was kind of always my mindset. But I think I've been proven wrong on that one, and pleasantly. Absolutely incredible engagement from the team, and that's been something that I've probably had to eat a little bit of humble pie on.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Mark, as always, great sage advice. Jim or Jeff, did you have a question for Mark?
Mark, I'll ask you a question. And I am impressed with just where LMN is today, and had a few calls this morning, and I with LMN customers, and it's just great to hear how they're using it and how something is making a difference. So I don't mean that as a commercial, but I do mean it as a you're practicing what you're preaching, and I think that's pretty awesome. And to see that, hear it here, and then to actually see it, so it's great. I would think. Let's see, we've got 1 million people on this webinar right now. If we were to ask what is the definition of adapt, we might have 1 million various definitions, and so that will be something I go walking in the woods thinking about, is what does adapt really mean? So you talked a bit about it. Give us Mark Bradley's definition of adapt.
Personally, I think adapting is just having the willingness to change. I think it's probably one of the biggest problems in most businesses when it comes to culture. It is just this inability to accept change, whether it's the owner or the senior staff, or sometimes even the employees, as a group, just doing things the way they've always been done because that's the way it is. I think this concept of adapting is just being willing to change, or at least considering other ways of doing things, because I think the company that is most willing to change is going to be most successful in any crisis and any day of the week in normal times. I just think having that culture of willingness to change is what really makes the difference in a successful company.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting, Jacki, to see which one of the four of us come out with the next book on adapt. It's going to be called Adapting. Yeah, Defining Adapting in 106 pages.
Yeah,
it's an interesting concept.
There's probably going to be a race to the publishing. There's one thing. So, to the four of you, great advice today for everyone that's on here. And I see there's one question here from George Harris, but just before I get to that and open to any other questions from the people in the chat, there's one thing that I wanted to add, just from my own perspective as a business coach, and some of the things that I've been thinking about with helping my clients and people that I talk to through the LO Peer Network to adapt and to be nimble, and to tie it to Jeffrey's point about sales, and to tie it to Mark's point about your customers and how can you build more loyalty. There's a little tool that I use when I'm trying to get business owners to think about the loyalty in their business and how they can up-level their customers' loyalty to the next degree. And that is to think about, how do your customers see you? Like, how do your customers view your company? And if you thought of it at four different levels, customers might see you as a stranger. In other words, it's a new customer, never tried your service before, maybe, found you online, followed your truck and took your website off of your tailgate or a phone number. Someone who's a complete, to them, you're a complete stranger. Your business is a stranger. So new customers who don't have a lot of experience test driving what you do and how they're going to experience it. So take your whole customer list and think about chunking it into these 4 sections. Which customers view your company as a stranger? The next level is which customers view your company as a supplier. So as someone who's tried, tested, and true, you're the guy that comes in and starts up the gardens, looks after the turf, or whenever I need a patio, I call this guy. I sell my house, I move to another house, I need another patio, I call the guy again, or the same company. So you're a supplier. The next level is to be a preferred supplier, viewed by your customers as a preferred supplier. So this is where the word of mouth starts to kick in. This is where the referrals start to kick in. And this is where people start to be advocates for your business. And you're a preferred supplier. And those are the customers that aren't going to leave because their neighbor recommended a different company, or they saw something online from another company, or they heard of somebody getting something for a cheaper price. The ones who see you as a preferred supplier are the ones who will pay more because they value the experience, as Mark says, that customer's experience of doing business with you. And then the 4th level is for customers who see you as a trusted advisor. So these are the customers who would come to you for advice or for recommendation of services that maybe are outside of your scope. And they are the ones who are the most loyal. They are the ones who have had the best consistent experience, some of which may have been how you fixed a screw up. That may be one of the pieces that helps build people to see you as a trusted advisor. And in my own landscape company, an example would be, I did mostly waterfront estate in cottage country landscaping. And so I get customers phoning up me and saying, who should I call for a boat mechanic? The boat won't start. Or do you know of a good plumber that I can call because the taps are leaking or the water filter's not working properly? And so as their landscape contractor, they start calling me for things that don't have to do with the services that I provide them, but I become a trusted advisor. So to Mark's point about looking at this as an opportunity, and to Jim's point, what could you just think about? What could you set back and just think about doing? How could you bring your wisdom and your knowledge and all of the things that you've taken in throughout your career? And to Jeffrey's point, how can you be a more tactical seller and salespeople? What if you took your whole customer list and divided it into those 4 categories? Which customers view you as a stranger, as a supplier, as a preferred supplier, and as a trusted advisor? And then challenge your team to come up with ways to take the ones who view you as a stranger and up-level them to view you as a supplier. And the ones who view you as a supplier to up-level you to, in their minds, to be a preferred supplier. How are you communicating what you're doing with your COVID measures to keep your customers safe and the community safe? How can you leverage this as an opportunity to deepen the relationship with your customers? So that's just one little piece from me. And maybe you can take that and run with it. But I do want to just ask, there's a question here from George Harris. Jeffrey, it's for you. What is your opinion on using online networking groups for promoting your business, for example, LinkedIn or Alignable? You have to unmute. Hang on. Sorry.
Using LinkedIn or what was the other one?
Alignable.
So LinkedIn networking groups. I use LinkedIn because that's where my clients are. And so I'm active there and strong there. Not so much in the groups. I think those have faded away in terms of their strength. But the general platform, a big for me because that's where my clients are. And so George has to decide, are his clients there? Is he selling to property managers? Excellent. Is he selling to homeowners? Well, not so excellent, right?
Right.
I do think, however, LinkedIn is great for networking with other professionals in your industry that at some point in the future may want to work for you. So I do think LinkedIn has a strength sort of regardless because of that. So George, you have to really know, assuming we're talking about bringing on new clients, you want to go where your clients are hanging out. If it's LinkedIn, go there. If it's Facebook, go there. If it's Instagram, then build that strength.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Jeffrey. Someone just asked me what the third level of loyalty was. So it's stranger, supplier, preferred supplier, trusted advisor. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. If anyone else has something to add, Mark, Phil, Jim, Jeff, anything you want to add before I tie up? Everybody's good.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you.
Thank all of you for being here. This is just so much fun. We should do this more often. But I want to thank everyone for gathering here today and bringing together your wisdom and your energy to this awesome North American community of professionals. Thanks to the association executives, the Nursery Landscape Association executives from every state and province for continuing to lead and support all of us locally with resources and with hope. So thank you again for coming. Watch your email inbox to get a recording and to get the links for everything that's provided from today's experts and from our coaches and consultants. And be well and wash your hands. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you.
Thank you.